What if the way you've been telling your life story reveals the secret to what is holding you back? Stories play an integral part in how we see not only ourselves, but the whole world. Stories are more than just an important part of communication. They also reveal hidden aspects of our inner talk, which can either support us or end up holding us back from the very things we want most in life, without us even realizing it. Join author, mindset coach, and award-winning singer-songwriter Carrie Rowan on her show, Look for the Good, every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. when she shares nuggets of wisdom from her internationally best-selling book, Tell a New Story, 5 Simple Steps to Release Your Negative Stories and Bring Joy to Your Life. Carrie's powerful stories and compelling guests will empower you to change how you look at your own life while giving you some powerful tools and tips you can use every day to help you feel better and move yourself closer to the life you've been longing to live.
Hello and welcome to Look for the Good. I'm your host, Carrie Rowan, and here we are in syndicated Dreamvisions 7 radio every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Listen online on your mobile device, in your car, or ask Alexa to play Dreamvisions 7 radio. To learn more and for a full schedule, go to dreamvision7radio.com and evolve with us as we unite humankind with universal love. And hello, everybody. Here we are and Look for the Good again. And as you know, we talk about looking for the good. Why? Because it's so easy to look for what's wrong in our lives. So we bring on special guests and we talk about real applications of what that means to look for the good and how the mind is so beautifully predisposed to looking for what's wrong and what you can do to switch that off, what you can do to rewire your brain. And it's all about the stories that you tell. And I can't wait to tell you about our special guest, Sandra Kearney. She's with Human Power Solutions. Hello, Sandy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you and I totally connected. I love your story. You have so many amazing stories. It's going to be hard to choose which one to share today. But tell us a little bit about yourself so they can get a little feel of what your background is, because you have a really interesting background and you've pivoted so many times.
I have. You're right. I started off in my working career in hospitality, working for Marriott, and ran food service and restaurants for Chili's for several years. Had children and moved into having a home business, having a daycare, and then not for me. So moved into staffing. I always say, if you don't like kids that much, don't run a daycare. So, do your passion, right? So I went into staffing for a few years. I really enjoyed that, and had an opportunity to, be home with my children for a little while. And I actually had an opportunity to open up a fitness center after getting my personal training certification. So I had that for several years. That was my first brick and mortar kind of business, and sold that after 7 years, just hours, kind of crazy. And I had a business coach at the time, and he said, why don't you come work for me? And I said, okay, sounds good. And here I am. 2019, I started my own firm for professional development. And here I am. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I love what I do right now.
Oh, I love that. And so many times, and I feel like, I tell that to my clients a lot, because people get hung up on, I'm not sure what it is. And kind of when you go with the flow of life like you did, I feel like it leads you down that path, right?
Yeah. We had several conversations with people recently about, it's been like memory lane lately. And every experience I've had has kind of led me here, and in the professional development world, as you know, Carrie, it's you're working with different kind of businesses, but we're in the people business. But the variety of experiences I've had in corporate, large corporate America, to owning my own small business, to having employees, et cetera, everything has just led me here. I truly believe that.
I love that. It's true. It's a path. And each one of those steps leads you a little bit closer. And then when we allow, the universe just shows us the way, right? When we're not pushing against everything and fretting about everything, and we're not getting there fast enough. These are the human conditions that we find ourselves in, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just love how you pivoted in all those things and how life unfolded for you. What do you think is the most important thing that allowed you to pivot into, because the fields are so varied, right? And for all of our backgrounds, mine is just like that as well. What do you think is the most important thing, or the mindset, or what you have to say to yourself in order to be open to pivoting?
Well, I was forced into pivoting. I mean, I loved working for Marriott. I loved my job. I loved the company, everything about it. But my son got sick. And so, he was diagnosed very early with type 1 diabetes. You and I connected on that. And he was only 16 months old. And, it's a tough disease to manage, even when as an adult, but at 16 months old, when you can't talk and tell how you feel, it was one of those, one of us has to stay home. So it was me, as per the universe. Right. So I did actually, I don't know where I'd be if that hadn't have happened, but everything happens for a reason. And he's 27 years old now and has 2 beautiful children, and it's fine.
I love that. I love that though. And that's the thing. Like, we can look back now, but a lot of times, when we're in the middle of that hard story, we're in the middle of, why is this happening? And it's really hard to see past it. And I say that a lot. I have a whole chapter in my book about my biggest, the turnaround story, which is actually about my daughter. And sometimes when you're in the midst of it, you can't see it. It's so lovely to be able to look back and go, wow, that was my biggest turnaround story. Because sometimes the things that we think are the most awful stories and the worst things that happen to us end up being the reason that we do go into our passions and follow our passions.
Yeah, definitely. And I think watching my mom, for me, like, I've never had the woe is me. I mean, I have moments of woe is me, but I've always lived kind of in that everything's going to be okay. That came from my mom for sure. My father died when I was just about 4. My mother had 5 kids under the age of, 10.
Wow.
He was 36, and she had no education. She just was like, nope, not going to stop me. And she went back and got her degree. And we just celebrated her 82nd birthday yesterday. And it was, she's amazing. Her life's been amazing. So
I love that. And, we talk a lot about that, right? I guess coaches, you always want a role model. You need a role model. And when your role model can be your mom, I mean, you don't have to look very far.
No. Yeah.
I love that. That is so powerful. And happy birthday to mom.
Thanks.
Because I feel like that's where a lot of these stories get planted in our head at a really young age, right? Somebody says something to us, good, bad, otherwise, well-intended, and it kind of gets planted in there. So when somebody can plant something like, hey, everything's going to work out, right? This is going to be, we can figure this out. We can work through this. That is so powerful. It's a powerful gift to give a young person.
Yeah. My kids always laugh at me because we're talking about, their student loans right now. We're talking about all these things. And they're like, Mom, you're saying is like, we'll figure it out. And they're like, we'll figure it out. It's just, that's they say that all the time. And it's like, that's my saying.
I love that, because I have a very similar one, and I talk a lot about getting clients to pick like a mantra, right? We've talked about this before too. And one of my favorite ones is things are always working out for me.
Yeah.
Very similar, simple, because it's nice to have something that you can fall back on. And that's what we need. That's what we need to teach people. It's great to have all these positive things, but when you're in the thick of it and the stuff's hitting the fan, what is your knee-jerk reaction? What do you go to? What does your mind pop into? And those are the questions to ask, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. My motto is get up.
I love it.
Get up. Yeah.
I love it, because that can apply to a lot of different things, right? Like,
you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, it does.
You don't want to, or you fall down, you brush yourself off. You got to get up. It doesn't matter how many times you fall, right? It's how many times you get up and go after it again. And and I know too very well, as entrepreneurs, that can be tricky sometimes. That can be tricky. And how did you implement all the stuff happening with COVID and all this, because your business was in person, I'm assuming at that point?
It was in person. I was really, again, like, life kind of prepared me for this, right? I went back and got my master's. I went to Nichols to get my master's in organizational leadership in 2016. I think I finished in 2018. And that was the first time I'd ever been exposed to, I could go in person, but I could also be online. So I was driving to Dudley. I'm like, why am I driving to Dudley when I can be online? So I actually did my master's in a hybrid setting. So I was on Zoom most of the time. And so super familiar with the breakout rooms. And I thought, this is cool, kind of thing. So when COVID hit, it didn't scare me. I was like, oh, we can just do this on Zoom. And so I was very fortunate. Like, my clients were a little leery, like, what? But I'm like, no, it's fine. I can now, we'll be fine. And so our sessions now, I mean, we can be in person, but we're just as effective over Zoom because the tools that we can use, yeah. So that's so COVID was game changing for me and my business, because I just started in 2019, and I spent months in New York building out a team there, because that's where we wanted to kind of be a dual place in Massachusetts and New York. And so when it hit, it was like, that's tough. So I kind of dropped New York, because I just wanted to focus on the clients that I had here. And it was really an interesting experience, because so many of our clients were trying to keep their employees busy and going, and on furlough and some pay. So they actually utilized the time for doing the professional development. So because a lot of our clients get grant money, so they had the money for the training from this grant. So it was really interesting that they utilized that time to keep their employees engaged, and that was really great. It felt really meaningful. It felt like we were keeping people connected and engaged with each other, and so they were able to see each other and talk to each other, and and work together and work on processing and issues and things like that. So
I love that. That is so powerful that companies turn to something positive, right? When a lot of negative was going on. And it sounds like the companies that you were working with were very progressive and able to do it quickly, and hire you guys and get you in there, because that's what the world needed, right? People needed some strategies. They needed some tools to help them manage through that time and improve their relations together, because it was a time of turmoil for everybody.
And connection. I mean, so much of it was just staying connected and not feeling so alone, kind of thing.
Yes, keeping the teams together, that synergy together. I love that. And I love the fact that you had already been on that path with your master's, right? I mean, it's like, wow, okay, well, that was just a natural next progression of things, because things are always working out for you.
Yeah. And it wasn't scary. It was like, okay, I'll just, all right. So, and Zoom at that time offered like a MCCT class, a modern classroom certification training. So I called my facilitators and I said, hey, listen, there's this class, it's $99. Like, I want everyone certified so that you know how to navigate Zoom. And so we took steps. So everyone that was working with me, my 1099, I, basically said, take this and you can facilitate. Because that class was, that was offered. I don't know how many people took it, but it was built for classroom teachers, like for educators. We jumped in because I'm like, what's the setup look like? What do we need? How many screens do I need? What do I need for microphone? Like all of that. Just went through everything. It was amazing. So, and the team was like, so our clients, regardless of who was facilitating, got a great experience.
That is wonderful. And again, you're progressive. You're out there, you're kind of cutting edge. You're like, and I feel like it's all about education. That's what we do. We're all about teaching people, right? And staying on the cutting edge, what's new, to keep everybody connected, to keep everybody learning, because I feel like that's the basis. Some of the greatest companies are the ones that keep evolving. They keep switching, they keep pivoting it, when they're staying up with the curve of technology and what's going on in the world. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. So if you were to share with us, you're very resilient, obviously, because of what you've been through your whole life since you were a tiny little girl. How do you teach that? How do you teach people resiliency? And I often think about resiliency with our children, right? But how do you teach that to employees, to companies? How do you teach companies to have their people be resilient? What do you think is most important about that?
I think going through, change management kind of development, right? So resiliency is a mindset. Change management is a process. So you teach the process and you talk about the mindset, it all kind of goes together. So we have a course called Change and Resiliency, and it really is the basis of what is change management, who are the early adopters, who are your innovators, who are the people that are going to follow the leaders, right? And talk a lot about, what the elements of change are and what the process to put change in place and how to motivate people. So I don't, resiliency is a hard thing to teach.
Yeah, you're right. It's a mindset.
It is, because you get those people who are, negative constantly, and they just don't see the bright side. And so you bring in someone like me who always looks at the bright side. I can be pretty aggravating. So,
Yes, I do.
Like,
I know that.
If you go in with hey, this is change management, and these are the steps to change, and this is what happens, and these are the steps that you need to take, in order to have that agile company. So that's really how we go in. And those people that are on the fence of positive thinking, they grab it, because here's the process. Oh, I have a process now. Now I can embrace this change, and now I can go champion it. If you don't have a process for how you're going to make change, then people just are like, what?
Yeah, they're lost, right?
Yeah, no idea.
They get stuck in that one big emotion, fear, because change and fear.
Yes.
That's right. That's the underlying thing. It's like, oh, wait, I can't change. This is how I've always done my job. This is my process, or my life. This is how I've always done it. So that's the big thing that comes up for people is fear. And that was everything surrounding the pivots that we all had to go through with COVID.
Right.
And how do you address that? Fear, it's just one of those insidious little things. And we have a lot of those little fear stories in our head, and I find working with clients is getting those out on a piece of paper. What are those fear stories? What do you say in your head around work? How can you tell a better story about work and getting up and getting in that mindset?
Yeah. Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm just thinking, I love these conversations. I think it's changing. It's helping people change their words, right? Because words matter. And so so when I talk to people about their fears or why they're not getting somewhere, or what's the deal as far as like, why aren't you following this protocol or procedure or whatever? And a lot of times it is that fear, but sometimes it's the story that they're telling themselves. So let's say someone says, I'm lazy. Are you lazy? Talk to me about your day. Well, I go out for a run in the morning, and I work all day, and I take care of my kids. But at the end of the night, I don't feel like doing anything. I'm just lazy. Is that really true? Right? How many people get up and go for a run in the morning? How many people work full time? They're all into their jobs, right? So it's actually like the lie and then the truth, right? So, and sometimes, and I always say, it's just not a priority. It just hasn't, like,
Yes.
I've run 2 marathons. Would I like to run another one? I would, just to see how I do, but it's not a priority. So am I training for it? No. Am I lazy? No, just not a priority for me. It's like when you go back to school, like everyone says, a lot of people will say, I want to go back to school. It's on my bucket list. I'll do it someday. And then they're like, well, I just don't have time, whatever. It just hasn't become a priority. And once you put it at the top of your list, guess what? It's done.
So true. And I feel like that what you just said applies to so many things, right? That story of procrastination, which is a big thing too. So when we come back from a quick little break right now, we're going to pick right back up with this. This is a great conversation. I know you guys are hanging on Sandy's every word. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Sandy Kearney with Human Power Solutions, and we are having this great conversation. We're just talking about fear and how fear comes up and some of these fear stories that we tell ourselves that are not true. And how do you dig in there? How do you get around those stories? And then we started talking a little bit about procrastination, because I know that's a big topic for a lot of people. And it's always fear somehow that's hiding underneath that procrastination. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on procrastination, what you were just telling me during the break.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about procrastination. So there's short-term procrastination, which is where you have a deadline. You have a deadline of like, I have to get this done by the 31st of this month. And then you procrastinate and then you pour it all on the 31st of the month to get it done. I'm in one of those modes right now. And long-term procrastination is where you have a project that you have to do, but there's really no deadline and there's really no end to it. House projects, whatever that is, right? That long-term procrastination, that guilt feeling, I should go to the gym every day, or whatever that kind of that long-term with no end date. That's what that's guilt. That's where people start to feel like they're lazy or they're not motivated or whatever that is. That's where depression starts to come in. So when we talk to clients about business goals and personal goals, because we do both with our clients, with those long-term projects that don't have an end date, we just recommend putting little milestones in, right? So just little milestones. So I remember when I was moving from one of my homes, I've moved several times, and that's a
big job in and of itself.
And I wanted to paint the bedrooms upstairs, and I had 3 bedrooms upstairs to paint, and I've been like, I want to paint the bedrooms, I want to paint the bedrooms. And it was just this long-term kind of, every time I go upstairs, I'm like, the bedrooms aren't painted. So what I decided to do is I said, okay, I'm going to take 3 weekends and I'm going to do every other weekend. I'm going to paint one of those rooms, because it takes 2 days to paint a room. So in the 6 weeks span of time, for something I've been thinking about for months and months and months and months and months, I got all 3 bedrooms painted.
Wow.
So, it's giving yourself your end date, because once you give your brain a deadline, a date, those SMART goals where it's time bound, your brain will click to get that done. I'm getting married in September, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a procrastinator, but I got a date like that. I actually got stuff done,
Yeah, that's a big date.
These little milestones that I've given to myself. The honeymoon's all planned, which is kind of the most important thing.
Hey, that's the best part.
But we got engaged in December of last year, and I'm like, my sister last night was like, what's your theme? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, Cindy, every time I talk to you about this wedding, she goes, you have no details. And I'm like, I know it's like, I know it's getting done, but so for someone like her, she's just going nuts.
You're like, it's all right here.
I'm like, it'll be fine. Like, it'll be okay. It'll be, and that's just, I'm like, I have the band and I have food. We're good. So,
and I got the husband.
Oh yeah, that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. But the long-term procrastination is really what kills people. It really is what, unless you can put a deadline, the long-term, that's where depression kind of kicks in. And, losing weight's a perfect example. Owning a gym for 7 years, I saw a lot of just people that struggled. And it hadn't become there was no end date, right? There was no, and so that long-term was really tough for people.
It's really hard. And I feel like, we talk a lot about goal setting, right? In business situations, but also in life. I talk with clients about that, but I feel like, and tell me what your thoughts are on this, even more important than the goal is the intention behind it, right? So you can have as many goals as you want, but if you don't have a really strong intention or a why, then none of that really matters.
Right. I agree. The why is huge. The why is just really, really huge. Like, why is this important? You know, and you put it out to the universe, and the universe does deliver. It always delivers.
That's the beauty. It always delivers. I love that. That's why one of the steps in my book for the 5 steps to release your negative stories is intention, because we don't realize how powerful. That's the thing that sits behind the goal and it drives the goal, right? it's the why. Why do you want to lose weight? Or why do you want to paint those bedrooms, right? It's like all those things. And you can get yourself into that state of mind, because everything's state of mind, about the why, and bringing that's what brings things up in your priority list. But I feel like we don't take the time to sit down and do that. Like, do you have a little routine that you like to follow? I know I have a morning routine that gets you strong every morning, gets you in the right mindset.
So no, I don't have a solid morning routine, but our yearly routine of writing down goals for the year and looking at those at the end of every quarter, and just not just business, but personal as well. What types of things we want to get accomplished? What's our big things for this year? So, looking at those kind of continues to drive, the vision, both personally and professionally. So my morning routine, I've like I said, I just, got engaged, and I used to just kind of pop out of bed and shower, get ready, go. And I'm learning to get up early, have coffee, relax a little bit before the day. So it's new for me, and I'm really enjoying that. So
I love that, because it puts you in that mindset of, hey, it's a lot of things, but I feel like it's an abundance mindset, because you're not feeling that time is scarce, right? It's a relaxation mindset. It's like, hey, I can afford to do this because I deserve it. It's also building value for yourself, right?
yeah.
It's a lot of things built into that. It seems small, but it's actually a really big thing. And it's self-care.
Yeah, it is. And I used to be like, why would you get up at that hour in the morning, have coffee? My friends, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, when you can sleep an extra half an hour. And those mornings that I do have to, like, that I do sleep in a little bit and I am rushed, those days don't go as well for me. So
Yeah, it's true. I love that. And I'm big about the, morning, the
yeah.
non-negotiable morning ritual or routine, because that's where those little habits gets implanted, right? They get implanted when we give ourselves that time to stretch and spend thinking. Maybe it's journaling. A lot of people have different methods to get there. Maybe it's meditation for some people. I love meditation. Or priming your mindset for the day. So there's a lot of different ways to achieve that. I love what you're doing. You're just taking the time. It's a gift that you're giving yourself. And when
Yeah.
you give yourself that gift, it allows you to sit there and appreciate that,
And
and
it's
start.
also time with my fiance. So, because he works second shift. So it's that kind of like taking that time to spend together and just to work on your relationship, because relationships are hard. Life is busy, and you got to take that time to spend.
And as you said before, I'm going to use the word again, is making it a priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Finding a place to fit it in. You can stretch the day more by getting up earlier and making yourself a priority. And I feel like that's where they think that going to work early, a lot of my clients, is making themselves a priority, but it's really not. It's giving away your power. So make yourself, and getting inside your priority, improving your relationships. Because when you do that kind of work, all the relationships in your life improve, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
At work and at home. So I love your whole story. And if you were to give a couple tips to the listeners, what would you give them tips to improve their life, improve their, feeling that they procrastinate or they're not doing enough, or one or two things that you fall back on? You already shared one with us, but
Yeah, I think it's hard to give people advice, right? Because it's a mindset. I think that I'm a I'm a perfectionist in a way, so I'm very hard on myself. And I think people can be very hard on themselves. And and truth be told, I will write a list of the good things that I've done, and instead of focusing on the things that I haven't finished or accomplished. And I think that, if you take that mindset, that attitude of what good happened today, what was the favorite part of my day today, or what am I looking forward to doing, and just starting off in that positivity. And it's not Pollyanna positivity, it's just reality. Like, tell yourself the truth, right?
mm-hmm.
So, I'm on a deadline this week and I have a lot to do, and it's Friday. today. And as we're recording this, and my brain is like, oh man, you should have done like blah, blah, blah on Monday. Right. But I didn't, because my mother's birthday was yesterday and she turned 82. And so I planned a family dinner. So we drove to the Cape. Like that was a priority to me. Should I have stayed home and done work? Probably. But how many more birthdays is my mom going to have? I don't know. Right. So it's really giving yourself a break and being like, it's fine because it will all get done. And I think that's the biggest thing, and not missing out on those moments, right? Where you regret things, where you didn't take the time to spend with a loved one. I've had two very, very close friends of mine pass away in the last 3 years. And one was prior to COVID, and I was so busy. I was working, I was in New York, we were doing a bunch of things, and she was very sick, and got married to her fiance, and I missed her wedding because I was in New York, and she subsequently passed away, and I regret not making that a priority because we knew that she was going to pass. So fast forward to this past month, I had another good friend of mine who was terminally ill, and very close friend of mine, cancer again, the devil. And she went into hospice, and I made it a point. I'm like, we were in the middle of moving, and I'm like, I'm going to see Beth, and I just made it that point to go and spend time and talk and, and do those kinds of things. And I feel like I was able to say what I wanted to say to her. We had some wonderful conversations, and, and that's life. Right. So I think it's giving yourself a break and really knowing what's really important in life.
I love that. Back to the priorities again. I'm so sorry to hear about your two friends and the way that you can reflect back and tell us so honestly. I feel like regret is one of the worst emotions that we humans have. It's a terrible thing. And so, but what came out of that is this beautiful priority that you're spending time with your mom yesterday. She's never going to have another 82nd birthday, right?
Right.
And these things, and they're really. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in our busyness, because I feel like it's an addiction, this busyness that we humans have, that we do forget what's most important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having a ritual, whether it's annual, daily, monthly, to sit down and reflect, what are my values? What do I value most in my life? And where am I spending my time?
Right.
I feel like that's really important because it all ties together. It's time management, but it's not just managing your work stuff. It's your whole life that needs to be managed.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're in a work-life blend. There's no such thing as a balance. I always call it, like, we're in a work-life blend. So how
I
are you
like that?
And what ingredients is it? 90% work is in your blender, 10%. What does that look like? And I really hope that people with COVID have really, I hope that people have shifted their priorities a bit, but not to the extreme either. Because honestly, Carrie, I love working. I love what I do, and I spend a lot of time on it. That being said, I make sure that, like I said, like, I will carve out that time for other things that are important. But I think you can't have too much of one and too little of another, on both sides of the coin.
I agree. I love that. I like the idea of the blend instead of the balance.
Yeah.
Because it is blending and it is all together. And so many of us work from home. It's got to all blend, I mean, I get knocks on that door all the time. It is a blend, and it's really a marriage of everything together. And I love that thought because I feel like that's where a lot of people struggle. So don't go anywhere. We're going to break for a minute for another word from our sponsor. We'll be right back with Sandy. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Look for the Good. I'm here with Sandra Kearney, and we are having an incredible conversation. I want to pick back up with what we were talking about before, because a lot of people have their perfectionistic problem, I'll call it. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I have it too. A lot of people I know have that. So how do you get past that? Like, how do you deal with that? Us not wanting to put stuff out, especially in this day and age where we're trying to put stuff out into the world. How do you deal with that? What do you say to yourself now that you realize that that's a tendency for you?
Again, I kind of give myself a little bit of a break, and, I'm human, and I kind of look at like, what have I accomplished? So I'm the president of our Rotary Club here in Westboro, and it's strictly volunteer. I've been a Rotarian for about 8 years, and I love it. And I became president this year, and I had really grand ideas about what we're going to do with the club and all these initiatives we were going to do and blah, 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 and got a lot of them done. And I felt really good about it. And then last Friday, I went to the Westboro has a block party, and every year the Rotary Club pass out flags. And I missed that this year. Like it wasn't on my radar because we had just done a 5K fundraiser, and then we had an installation for one of our club members became the district governor. So there was a lot of things going on. And then I had my grandkids, and we were moving. Work was really busy, and I just missed it. And I went to the block party with my grandchildren on Friday, and I get there and I was like, there's no flags. What's, and I just felt like I failed. And it was one of those moments where I recorded a video to the club, and I said, and I'm like, we need people to get involved, blah, 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 blah. Right. And so today I had a board meeting, and again, this is all volunteer, right? This isn't make or break, my life. And I had a meeting with the board today, and I said, here's all the good things that we did this year. And I listed the things, and I'm like, and here's where I feel like I failed. And they said, you know what? They go, did you see the list of everything that got accomplished that we've been like for years have been saying that we need to get accomplished? And they're like, was that a priority for us? And they, and it was, so I think, and they were like, you've done a great job. And I'm like, I'm not looking for kudos, but I bit off a lot, and I bit off a ton. And you have to kind of say, all right, I bit off a ton, and I shot for the moon. I still landed in the stars, that old cliche saying, right? And I'm in year 2. I took on 2 years because I wanted to, whatever. But this year I'm doing it differently, so so I think when you're a perfectionist, you can't look at things as failures. It's just, what didn't you have time for?
Mm-hmm.
And what was good. And so when you talk about the gratitude, like, I'm grateful that we got, the finances cleaned up, the storage unit, so we weren't wasting money, right? I'm grateful for being able to like have the foresight to do those things. And as a perfectionist, I could look and spend all this time on, we didn't pass out the flags.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be my defining, like, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
but so next year it's like, who wants to champion the flags?
Delegate. That's another good word. But we do that. Like, it's so, we focus on, and I love, because that's one of the things, I just wrote a big article for Authority Magazine on how to believe in yourself. And that's one of the tips I gave. You've got to make that list, because we forget. You got to make that list. Like this other group I belong to, this mastermind, they call it the badass list. So you make the badass list, right, of all the cool things you've ever done in your life. When do you ever make a list like that? Right. And when you start seeing it there, you're like, wow, I guess I'm not lazy, or whatever that story that you're telling yourself that's not true. Like, you failed, right?
So we just did our one of those long-term procrastination things is doing your trust in your will and all that, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
A lot of people that's a long-term, procrastination. So we're getting married, a second marriage for us. We each have, our own families. And so I'm like, we need to set everybody up so everyone knows what to expect a little bit more. But, and one of the things it was like, what do we want our funerals to look like? And I said, well, celebration of life. Like, that's my jam. And, I want that Live Like You're Dying is to be my ending song by Tim McGraw.
I love that song.
I do too. And, and I think about that. I'm like, well, I've been skydiving. I've been rock climbing. I got my motorcycle license when I was 50. I've been to Europe, like all these things like that. Check on my bucket list. Had a good life. and it's not been given to me. So, the people that are like, well, I could never do that. Well, I mean, we were not rich growing up, and we all just learned how to work and learned how to dream. And I think that's a big thing for people, is having that resiliency and being able to, you control everything in your life. Everything. There's not one person, government person, that holds anyone down.
I love that. That is so huge, because that's the piece that I feel like is missing for a lot of people. That's the stumbling block. They look around us. We're a very externally focused world, right? We're thinking of all, look at everything around us. We're getting pulled. Our attention's getting pulled in a million different directions. And so we forget we forget how much control we give our power away, especially as women. We've been taught to give that power away our whole life. So to be able to take that back, and I love what you just said, and standing in your power and owning that, you're creating it.
Yeah. And I mean, I had jobs that I hated that didn't make much money, and I always had a side gig. There was always something. I was always working on my passion. So if I had a job that I didn't like, what's my passion? Yeah. I mean, I always had a side gig. I even have a side gig now and I own my company.
I love that.
I own my development company, and then I own a networking franchise. Like,
you do? I love that.
my side gig, like, it's twice a month, and I love my two groups. But people are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, it's my side. I've always had a side gig, and I enjoy that. So yeah, I mean, is it an extra? It's an extra, but it's just, multiple income streams has been my philosophy for my whole life. My mother was, my mother crawled out of a terrible situation. And she just, like, we were doing mailings, we were doing, she did bookkeeping, she worked her job. Like, I watched her just do she's amazing. And her mother was a profound alcoholic, and like, she just had nothing. She got married at 19, and my dad was 36. She had no education. He just claimed bankruptcy. I mean, 5 kids, couldn't move home because her mother was a drinker. So when people look at me, like, I drive a Mercedes, just because I just wanted to. I love my car, but it's not for anything. That's just like, it's a gift I'm in my car all the time. It's a gift to myself. It's not for status. Just love that car.
Yeah.
And I earned it.
You earned it all by yourself. Nobody did it for you.
Yeah. And I think that's like, if you have that mindset of like, what can I do? And especially, God, now with COVID and remote work, there's no reason that you can't do something incredible. My sister's like in TikTok fame. Like, she started in interior design, and she's been on TikTok and Instagram. And she just got invited to a huge national, out of 300,000 people, 250 people are invited to this, convention. She's one of them. And when I remember when she first, she was like, Sandy, you think I can do this? I'm like, just do it. I'm like, learn as you go.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people that was like in fear. And now she's like, I was talking to her yesterday. She's like, I'm making more money than my nursing job.
It's so cool. I love it. I love it. And I love what you just said. Just do it and learn as you go. And that, I feel like, is the key to overcome that perfectionism. Just make progress. A little tiny step every day. She probably just started putting herself out there a little bit on TikTok, a little bit. And then all of a sudden she got into it, and she got her groove on.
The wheels going, and we just crack up. Like, there's 5 girls in my family. We're like, this is crazy, but it's fun.
It's so fun.
Watch her. And I think, and when I started my business, I was fired from my job. I was for, I don't even know why, but a variety of reasons that we won't even get into, but none of them legit. And so when I left my company, I was fired 5 days before Christmas in 2019.
Oh, that's terrible.
And it was devastating. So, I cried for the weekend, or Friday to Saturday. And then Sunday, my significant other said, you knew this was coming, because I knew the writing was on the wall. I knew it was coming sometime. Just didn't think it'd be 5 days before Christmas. And he's like, you've been thinking about this, so just just do it. And I was like, okay. And so Sunday, I built my website. Monday, we incorporated. And then I spent the next 2 weeks calling all of my former clients, and I didn't have a non-compete or a non-solicit. So 80% of the clients moved over. So had I sat in fear, had I sat and wallowed and, stayed in that space, COVID would have crushed me.
Oh, big time. You would have missed that window. And that's the thing. When life gives you that, closes one door, you have that short window right there where we can start to feel sorry for ourselves, or we can, like you said, get up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As you told me before, get up. And I love that mantra. And that's exactly what you did. But you also, let's honor the part that where you gave yourself time to honor those feelings, because that's super important. And I think a lot of people skip that step, right? Because if you didn't grieve and feel those feelings and the humiliation and the injustice and all those things you were feeling, right?
Yeah, the anger
and the anger and the what, the
what
shock,
happened?
right? The shock of it all. You have to, right? You have to honor that. Otherwise, I feel like we carry that with us. It gets stuck in our body and then it comes out sideways. So I love the way you did that.
And I think it's important. People have to give themselves that time.
Big time.
I mean, you sit with it for a little bit, sit with the feelings and take a beat. And then, once that, don't sit there too long.
Back up.
Yeah.
Get up and then make your move, because it's that action. It's getting back in action that lets that other stuff go out of our system, which is
I was so afraid, what the clients were going to say. And, because I was new and I didn't know. I mean, I was calling and I had no idea. But again, it was one of those things. Very good at what I did, and I'm very good at what we do. And that's just, people were like, we trust you.
I love it. And you believed in yourself, all
Mhm.
those little things along the way, and you knew that you could do it, right? And you had that role model of your mother. You had just so many great, juicy things in there. I love it. I just love it. We have so much in common, with 5 kids and the whole thing. And I
Right.
just love all that. Tell us a little bit more about your business. How do you help companies? I love all this leadership training that you do. Tell us how you help companies become better.
Yeah, we really work a lot of what we've talked about today, Carrie. It's the mindset of your leader, of your new leader. So we work with executive teams to help to create their strategy and their mindset and what they want their culture to look like. And then our sweet spot is where we work. We work with the employees, because the employees are the people that are executing that vision. They're the ones that are touching the customers and the clients, and that internal culture is very important. So we really we work with companies who embrace the thought of servant leadership. The autocratic companies are not they're just not the type of companies we work with. And we really want to help to develop leaders that have high emotional intelligence, that can have those difficult conversations, that can resolve conflict on their own, that can make decisions. We do a lot of financial training for managers as well, because a lot of financial decisions affect the bottom line. And managers sometimes don't understand how their decisions, hiring is the hugest cost, right? Turnover. So we talk a lot about that onboarding process and that new employee experience. So, we talk about, we're the general contractor for training, basically, for developing people. So, if someone says, I want underwater basket weaving, okay, we'll go out and source that for you and we'll find it. So there's nothing, so I'm an out of the box thinker. So there's nothing that's really too out of the box for us. And there are so many people out there that are brilliant in what they do, and that do great kind of development, and they've got great programs, and we partner with really, really great people.
It's all about the people. I love that. I love that. It's not about your resources. It's about being resourceful, right? And finding what somebody needs. You don't have to have all those people on your staff. You just have to know where to find them.
Right.
And deliver them to your clients and vet them and all that stuff that companies don't have time to do.
Right. Yeah. And our core partner group have, 20 plus years of experience in their field. So our hybrid and remote facilitators, they do a great job with working with remote teams, and they've been doing it for 25 years, well before COVID. So they're not the flat, they do a lot of research, very research based, and, processes. So we're very process oriented. a lot of all of our trainings or workshops are workshop based. So it's process improvement, it's working together, it's breakout, groups or whatever that is. So we're usually working on something. So, whether it's a white glove client experience, we'll grab a focus group of people, of individuals, and create that. What's our code of conduct for clients? And then we roll that, what they've created with our help, then we roll that out to, the employee base, because there's accountability there. If we came in and said, you need to do this, this, and this, and that's by PowerPoint, and watch our PowerPoint, and this is what we're going to do. Right. People are no. Right. And so we're having people really engage, and what's your current what is currently working. Let's talk about that. Can we enhance that? What's missing? Okay. How are we going to put that in? And it's them coming up with it. And we're facilitating towards the goal. So it works really well. It's so much fun.
I love that model. It's total collaboration. It's co-creating something together. All right. You don't have to change everything. You're not reinventing the wheel. You, of course, have things like we talked about, what's working in your life, what's not. Same thing with a business, what's working, what's not. And getting in there and helping them craft a solution. I love that.
Yeah. And so many companies, training companies come in with I know everything. You don't know their company. Every company is so different. People ask me, well, what industries are you in? I'm like, we're in the people industry. Like, we're in the people business. So it doesn't matter what industry, we'll learn the industry. But because we're in the people business, we listen to the people in the company. And we don't listen to the people that are negative Nellies and that are like, so we obviously work it so that it works. So it's not like we take their ideas and run with them. We'll guide them to maybe have you thought about it this way? That way, right?
Change their perspective. Like you said, you're an out of the box thinker, which is why you have this incredible company that you've created. So tell us, where can they find you? If they're interested in finding out more about your company, where can they find you?
You can go to hpowersolutions with an s.com, and certainly can cruise through our website there. We're changing that over, so hopefully it'll be a new one pretty soon. Or just contact me at skearney@hpowersolutions.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. It's fun. Thank you.
So fun. You're great to interview. Loved all the wealth of information. And I know you guys got a lot out of this. And if you're listening to us live, that's awesome. You can always listen. You can download later and listen to us. But thank you so much for being on Look for the Good. You're a perfect example of what this show represents. And remember, everybody, it's never too late to live your best story. Be well.
Thanks for tuning in to Look for the Good with your host, Kearney Rowan, best-selling author and mindset coach. Join us every Monday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. right here at Dreamvisions 7 Radio Network. If you weren't able to catch an episode, no worries. Just visit our website to find all the archived episodes of Look for the Good on demand, so you don't miss a thing. And remember, it's never too late to live your best story. For additional resources or to find out about how you can work with Kearney directly, visit KearneyRowan.com for more details.